All right, welcome to the Teaching a Rockstar podcast. And on today's episode, we have Dr. Shaun Woodly. I came across this guy online and just read his bio, went to the website, and there's so much I want to ask him because of my experience in teaching and what his expertise is. And he's a speaker. He's an author. He has a book out. He does staff development, and he specializes in helping educators just flourish in that classroom family that they create for their kids. And like he gets it. I can tell already just by reading through his stuff. Like he gets it, man. If we're going to make a difference, we've got to be different. And he shows that in how he works with teachers. And, he has this whole thing, man. It's called Teach, Hustle, Inspire program. We're going to talk about that, where it's not really a program. It's more a movement. And we're going to dig into what all that means to him. Here we go. Dr. Shaun Woodly, Teaching a Rockstar podcast. Let's do this.
This is the Teach Like a Rockstar podcast with Hal Bowman.
And before we dig into this with Dr. Shaun Woodly, I have got to tell you about Boston Scally Caps. I have found the absolute best caps on the internet at bostonscally.com. The Boston Scally Company is the online purveyor of caps with the most attitude. Some people refer to them as a flat cap or a Gatsby or an Ivy cap, but the cap everyone is really looking for is the traditional Boston Scally cap. Founded by the son of a lifelong educator, the Boston Scally Company designs and sells caps that capture the unique culture of the Boston people with an authentic style that is filled with blue-collar sarcasm, rugged integrity, and a truckload of attitude. Pick up the authentic Boston Scally cap at bostonscally.com.
The Teach Like a Rockstar podcast with Hal Bowman.
Man, can I tell you a little story? Little story time first? Sure. All right, check it.
Yeah.
So I was teaching in a school, and it was a suburban school, and it was brand new construction. And it's one of those things where you move in, the freshmen. Well, there's so many schools out there. Freshmen get a choice if they want to come or not. And then we get those kids, and then they bring in the sophomore class and junior class, and after the third or fourth year, we got all four grades: freshman, sophomore, junior, senior. And the school was built in a field, so there's nothing out there, way outside of Houston. And then, the closest neighborhoods these kids are coming from, I'm guessing home prices, if I remember right, around $250 to $350. Parents driving into Houston, they're commuters. And, lots of history of college education. And, that's what we're doing for a couple of years. And then we come back from August, summer, and we're driving. And I'm driving down this road. I get through all the neighborhoods out into the field, and there's this billboard that says, "Coming soon, homes from the 70s." And then there's another billboard for the new construction of apartment complex. And there's a trailer, like a mobile home housing thing going up. And all these neighborhoods were built in that field but for miles around. And within, I'm telling you, brother, within a year, it was a completely different population, like a completely different demographic. And so what we went from is like all these teachers that went to that school in new construction, they knew what they're signing up for. And it wasn't these kids. It was those other kids. And within a year or two, we had a whole different crew of kid, man, like a whole different type of kid and a whole different type of family. And to say that teachers struggled is like a monumental understatement. And for the longest time, man, like I hated those teachers. I was a younger teacher, and I hated them because, like, man, they're just mean. Like, what are they? Leave these kids alone. Like, but in their mind, they used to be called, rigorous, and now they're mean and inflexible. And where before that, they still trying to do, we have a standard. These kids have to meet the standard, and I'm not. They were doing that thing. And then one day I realized, it's one of two things. Like the real problem is that teacher isn't self-aware, and they either have to figure out how to connect with these kids and build a new type of relationship with these kids, or just move on. Like, these aren't your kids.
Yeah.
Like, your kids don't go to school here anymore. Go find those kids. They're at the school 3 miles away now. They're over there. And man, what I like about your stuff and what you post and just reading in your bio is like that urban environment. Although it was suburban, it was really kind of urban in the style of kid and family that we got. And like, how did you get interested in all that at the very beginning of this whole journey you're on?
That's where I started. That has been my teaching experience, has been in urban and culturally diverse schools. And so I came in to the classroom kind of similarly to that way that school ended, or
Yep.
excuse the way that school transformed. That's where I started. And so as far as just being an educator, like that's all I knew.
Yeah. For you, man, like was that your experience growing up?
Mm-hmm. Yep, same exact thing. I came through a school system. I live in Atlanta now, but I'm from New York. And growing up, the school district that we lived in, it was culturally diverse, and so it was a school system on Long Island. And if you look at what the statistics and the newspaper articles and things like that say, it's terrible school, terrible neighborhood, all of those types of things. I had some really strong teachers, but now being an educator myself, and looking back, I had some not so strong teachers.
Yeah.
And you could tell who really wanted to be there. You could tell who was just going through the motions. And so it was familiar to me when I started teaching in an urban school.
Yeah, man. When I remember, I grew up in New Jersey through 7th grade, and man, I remember, it didn't, I don't know, not to say it wasn't as a big a deal. I just don't remember so much emphasis being in school as when I moved to Texas to Houston in terms of diversity of races and cultures. I just remember, look, man, there's a whole bunch of white kids, a whole bunch of black kids, a whole bunch of Puerto Rican kids. That was pretty much what it was, man.
Same thing. Yeah.
But when I got here, man, like it was really clear that, you know, in this school district, there's the black school, there's the white school, and all the Hispanic kids go over there.
Yeah.
You know, based on the neighborhood, and there wasn't a lot of busing across. There's way more so now. But, you know, I think for educators, oftentimes they show up in a job with a whole bunch of kids that they didn't even know these kids existed. They never talked to them before. They didn't live with them. And I got to think it's really hard.
It is. That's a struggle for a lot of teachers. And that's what a lot of my work focuses on, because that struggle, if you think about it, what's happening is there's just a knowledge gap there somewhere, because those, and I'm saying with those air quotes, those kids can learn. They just learn differently than the way that many of us were taught to teach. And so if we don't make adjustments in our teaching style and how we connect to and educate those students, then that you're talking about droves of students year after year after year that are being undereducated and then going on into the world unprepared by the droves year after year. So there has to be a change. There has to be something that has had to be done. And it can be done, because otherwise there would be no success with students in that population. And there has been success. There are just specific practices that have to be put in place for those students to be successful.
Man, that's what I love, because I'm all about, if you can show me an example of somebody pulling this thing off one time, that's all I need.
That's it. And it'd be different if no one's ever done it. Now we have a problem.
Yeah, I get it.
If it's never been done, but it has been done, and it's done every single day. It's just that it doesn't. I like to think of when you go back to those teacher preparation programs, when we learn how to be educators and we're taught specific, pedagogical styles and things that we kind of just relate to based on our personality or how we were taught, and we gravitate towards certain teaching styles. Yeah. And likely that teaching style doesn't align with certain populations of students, which is natural. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But what we have to do is we have to understand that we cannot put ourselves in a box as far as our growth. We have to be able to learn that we have to learn and continue to learn as educators to expand our reach so that we can reach everybody, not just a certain demographic of students.
Man, man, this is powerful. So one of my theories is a lot of the stuff that I see being taught in teacher preparation programs at the university level, like I get it, I totally understand it, but a lot of times that strategy and all that pedagogy, you know what, man? For the kids that you're talking about, where this stuff is going to be effective, they're going to learn anyway. Do you know what? Like these kids, you know what I mean? Like, In fact, you don't necessarily need to be teaching. I just had a conversation with a principal with a school that's, kind of seeing this changing population. And he had to tell his teachers, hey, listen, man, for the last 5 years, you've been talking. You've been standing in front of your room talking. Now we need to start teaching.
Yeah.
There's a big difference between talking and teaching.
That's it. That is it.
Yeah, man. And so, so the other thing is, for me, and I don't know if you've seen this, but for those teachers that struggle, oftentimes with a population they're not familiar with, or they don't connect with, or don't understand, there seems to be this inverse relationship between how much they struggle and how much they know their kids. Like the more they struggle, the less they know about their kids, and the deeper the relationship, the less they struggle.
Yep. That is a direct relationship. You're exactly right. And you know what the foundational element in each of those circumstances is? It boils down to culture.
Yeah.
It really, really does. And one of the things that I've learned in my research and in my practice is that culture, a lot of times, a lot of good educators and even struggling educators, we make an effort to put it and make it a part of our classroom. And so there are conversations that are had about people of color or people that may look like the students. You might see different programs, where you bring in a dish from your heritage or your background, or you might hang up some flags and things of that nature, which is great. It really, really is. However, the issue is when it stops there, that's where most people make the mistake, because that's only at the surface.
Yeah.
What we have to understand is, as educators, culture is so much more than what is observable at the eye level and at the physical, tactical level. It's below the surface. It's a lot of those unwritten rules that we have to not only understand, but we have to implement. And when we can understand and implement those and adjust our teaching style to make it culturally responsive, now that's where that comes from. Now this is where we start to shift the narrative and shift the results that we're getting in our classrooms.
You know, what I find is these kinds of conversations between me and students are super fun and super easy. However, when I have these conversations with adults, I can feel things are uncomfortable in the room, and no one wants to say anything that's not appropriate. And but it's a kids, it's a whole different deal. Like I just talked about this with Vernon Wright on the other day when we were talking, and like in my classroom, those kids wanted I don't like this word acceptance. Like, let's just accept. I'm not interested in accepting anybody, man. I want to find what's weird and let's celebrate it, man. And I learned that from the kids, man. Like, and like that, they get so excited about what's unique and what's different. Yeah. And it's almost as like, we were trying to one up each other, find out how different your stuff is from my stuff, or how your family celebrates and my family. Yeah. And like, that's when that's when you learn.
It is. And you know what? That word acceptance kind of, to me, is synonymous with tolerance.
Yes.
And I cringe when I hear that discussion of tolerance in the classroom, because I heard it put this way one time: you tolerate flies at a picnic. And I don't like that, because now it's just like, well, all right, like I have that image of flies bothering me when I'm trying to eat. I'm tolerating them. Yeah. We don't need to tolerate these students. And what you said is awesome. We need to learn about them. We need to go beyond that acceptance, beyond that tolerating people, and celebrate these differences. That's the dream right there. And it starts with what you mentioned earlier about that whole self-awareness aspect. It's critical.
Yeah. Hey, when you go to schools and you talk about these types of things, do you sense that same thing when you're standing before teachers, they're in the auditorium or wherever they're meeting, where these are, like, this is touchy, like, we're on thin ice here and like let's tiptoe around some of this stuff, or you just dive on in?
I don't often get that resistance, and here's why. Because I try to, and I'm going to use this analogy just because I gave my son some medicine earlier. It's like when you give a child medicine, it's that grape flavored. It's solving a problem, but it tastes good. So when I have these discussions, I try to present them in a way that is engaging, that people can relate to. And so there are certain terms, certain language that I substitute. For example, If we talk about, like, a lot of this boils down to implicit bias. Implicit bias has this connotation of you're racist.
Yep.
And so in order to switch that, I talk about shifting paradigms. And so that immediately allows me to go forward with the discussion without people getting defensive and raising that bridge, and more so raising that barrier, excuse me, and more so creates a bridge for that conversation.
Yeah. Man, when you were teaching and when you're walking down the hall and you're seeing what's happening in classrooms, did you have these moments like, oh my gosh, they just don't know, or they don't get it, or they need help?
Definitely. I had a leadership position before I started teaching at the college level. And it's very easy to walk down the hallway and see what's in control and what's not in control. And it's sometimes, like, I'll do an observation or something like that. And we need to have some tough conversations. But at least what I like to see in those instances is just that you're willing to learn. If you have an attitude for learning and growth, it can be solved. It really, really can. It's when we meet resistance and I'm doing this right, they need to change. That's when we have an issue.
Yeah. I talk about that a lot, that, whenever I hear that phrase that comes out, well, these kids, anytime it starts with that, man, like, for me, or, it's that ownership component that is often a difficult conversation with educators, because in my mind, what I really want to say is, man, listen, you have to own 100% of this thing. Like, you have to believe completely all this is your fault, both good and bad. Like, every time it's amazing, it's for one reason, because you're amazing. And when it's really bad, it's for one reason, because you're really bad. Like, because if you do that, what I try to help them understand in a very subtle way, man, like if I keep giving away all the power, it's these kids and that principal and this community and this, and we don't have the funding. Well, what's left that I can affect, man? What's left over that I can change? But if I really believe it's not these kids, it's me, then I can change 100% of it.
Yep. Absolutely. And that self-awareness part, I mean, it all boils down to that, like that. It's an accountability factor with this. At the end of the day, it really, really is.
Yeah. Man, I was in Louisiana speaking, and there was a couple schools I visited one day. And in Louisiana, this isn't true for all the parishes, but in some of the parishes, there's no busing, man. They really do. It's not a metaphorical train tracks. It's literal. It goes down the middle of the town, and those are the white kids on that side. Those are the black kids on that side. And and I visit the school where the kids that are Caucasian go to, and when I visit that campus, it's kids are coming down the hallway, and I look at all the doors are open, and it's quiet, and kids are sitting there, and teachers are talking, and they're in the front room talking, and kids are taking notes, and they leave, and there's kids everywhere, and they go to the next class, and it's I don't know if the word is stale, but more of a stagnant environment. But when I go to the school on the other side of the track, man. And to see these teachers in the hallway, and by the way, they're neck and neck in terms of academic performance, and see these teachers in the hallway between classes hugging kids, and this interactive lessons that are going on, and kids are doing skits, and I mean all this stuff is going on, and people wonder why, how are they pulling this off? How are they so good over there? And it's like, man, go visit, and you can see how deeply these kids feel loved, and just letting them be kids. And yeah, man, it's loud, but it should be loud. There's 3,000 kids in the building. What do you want it to be, man? And they're excited, and they love their teachers, and there's always something exciting. They're running a class, and that can happen anywhere.
It can. It really, really can. That relationship factor. There are a lot of important factors. Like I kind of, in my book, I created this model that's based off of my experience as a teacher and as a DJ. And it has 4 critical elements: achievement, alliance, awareness, and artistry. And that alliance part, that relationship building factor is so important, because that communicates to students a lot of different things, not the least of which you're important, you're valued, you belong here, I believe you can do it. And that increases that student's efficacy, that he or she can believe that she can actually do it. And but that's all fostered by a relationship. It really, really is. And that connectivity, that human connection. When I speak to educators, I try to bring that home by making it personal. For example, relationship, like we're relational beings. If you've traveled somewhere, anywhere, I go on vacation every once in a while, and my wife and I, we celebrated our anniversary over the summer, and we went to Jamaica. And one of the first things that you do when you get to that new resort, you might meet another couple. Hey, how you doing? And the second question that comes out of your mouth, 9.5 times out of 10 is, where are you from?
Yeah.
Now, I ask people, why is that? Why are you asking, where are you from? And it all boils down to, you're trying to find out where that person is from to see if they're from somewhere that you're familiar with. If they know somebody that you know, at the end of the day, it's a connection thing. We're trying to find some form of way to connect with that person. Is there a way? Is there a relationship connection in there some way? Regardless of what they look like, where are you from? How are we connected? And it's human nature. And those kids, it's the same thing. They're looking for that connection. And when it's not there, it's an uphill battle every single day. It really, really is. It's connection. When you have that connection, it makes almost everything else so much easier.
Yeah, man. And especially for a kid, because a kid walking in, because I have some experience, I've been around for freaking 5 decades. I know there's something. I can look at a kid and like I know we come from different places and we look different and act. I get it, but based on my experience, I know there's some common ground somewhere. But a kid doesn't know that. The kid has no idea, man. I mean, look at that guy. Mm-hmm. He's 5'3". He's bald. He's white. He's always laughing. I don't know who that dude. There's in their mind, because they've only been on the planet for 14 years. In their world, there's no way we have anything in common until, like, that's the point. Like, we have to dig down deep. And you know what? For teachers, it sounds crazy, but what I always tell them is, like, think about elementary school. Even if, like, kids at junior high and high school, they love that stuff. Like, I tell them, if you have a room full of juniors and seniors and you've never done show and tell, you're crazy. Man, it's awesome. Man, kids love it. And I would tell them, man, bring something with a story. I would give them rules. It can't be alive. It can't be breathing. Has to fit in your backpack. It has to be legal. Get all kinds of stuff. Yeah, man. It has to be. I give them some rules, but bring something with a story. And these kids will, man.
Amazing what you can learn. Yeah.
And they will go on and on and on. And people think, hey, man, I don't have time. I'm teaching world geography. Listen, man, this time thing, this is like, I say when it comes to building relationships, you can invest a little bit up front, or you're going to pay dearly the whole year long.
That's it. That is it. And you know what? When you do those types of things, that communicates to those students that the special parts and the things that are important to me are valued. That says a lot. That lets that student know that, what, my opinion is important. What I value is important. I'm important to this person in this classroom, and they're going to go so much further and so much harder for you because they believe that you believe in them, which influences how they are able to believe in themselves. That's a dope idea, really. Show and tell. I like that.
Dude, kids love it, man. They can't wait. It's my turn Friday, right? Because we would do it Friday. 1 or 2 people go every Friday. Dude, they can't wait to get it going, man. And man, that whole concept of feeling important, and that there's, that's like those basic human needs of, they want to feel connected. They need to feel that they're significant, that they matter, that they have to feel like they're improving and growing as a person because of the family that we created in that class. And what I try to help teachers understand, hey man, listen, these kids, they're going to satisfy those needs one way or another. That kid's going to be significant. He's going to figure out how to be significant. You can either set him up for that, he's going to figure it out on his own, man.
That's it. That is it. It really he's going to figure it out one way or the other, whether it's the way that you'd like or not. Yeah. That is factual.
Yeah, one of the guys I love as a school leader, his name is Jeff Springer. He's retired now. Not retired. He's repurposed. That's what he calls it. So he's repurposed now. But he had this thing called VCL. And he just, for years, he would talk about it every time with every kid on the morning announcements every day. And it was all about, he needed everybody on that campus to know that they're valuable, that they're complete, that they have everything they need, man. It's all inside of you right now.
Yeah.
Like you were born with all that you need,
Yep.
and that you're loved. And
Wow.
and by the time he was done at that campus, I would go to a pep rally, and I'm not talking like most, like every kid has a VCL shirt on. Every kid has a VCL wrist, rubber wrist bracelet thing on. And people think like, man, that was like an overnight thing. Well, overnight nothing, man. That's like a decade of that dude's life harping on it every day. But it eventually works.
Yes. When if they internalize that, which it sounds like they have, that's magnanimous. That's fantastic. VCL, I like that.
Yeah. Hey, man, when you show up at a campus, have you had this experience where you show up and they know they're struggling, which is a good sign? Just, there's somebody on campus that's self-aware and they need some guidance, and you show up and you can tell this is a campus that needs a lot of help. Where do you start? Like what's the first types of things you want to put in their mind?
The first thing that I try to do is put them at ease with my role and why I'm there. Sometimes staff development, sometimes consultants, they can present themselves as what's a nice way to say this? Not so friendly, or I got you, and here's what you're doing wrong. And I try to eliminate that. I try to let my personality shine. I like to have fun. I'm an educator by nature, whether I'm educating students or I'm educating other educators. And I try to just let them know upfront that I'm here and I'm on their side and I'm just here to help. And I've been very successful at that. And I feel like once I'm able to do that and to get them to lower that barrier that can arise sometimes, it's a lot easier to have some of those conversations. And it's a lot easier to now walk into the classroom and say, okay, I see here, this is what you did. Here's why it may not have worked, and this is what you can try instead. Yeah. And then we have those sessions where now we're going deep into some of these 4 elements that I was telling you about, and have some of those conversations, and we can have them. They're participating in those conversations, and they're well received. And more importantly, there's change that comes after those.
Sure. Man, I don't know if there's another profession. I mean, here's what I love. I love that it's changing, and I think it's changing because of social media and seeing what's out there and what other teachers are doing. But if you asked me 10 years ago, I would have said, man, I've never seen another profession on the planet where there is somewhat of a fear and feeling uneasy about seeking help or mentorship in terms of what's happening in the classroom.
Yeah.
Where
I agree.
Man, if you're like a real estate agent and you're brand new, or if you're not, but you're struggling, like the only thing you would do is go find a really good real estate agent and follow them around and do what they do.
Yeah.
And you would read books, but what I find, and it's getting better, way better, but there's still teachers out there that when they struggle, man, they cut out that orange construction paper rectangle, put it over the window on the door,
leave me alone.
Yeah, man, try to keep the kids quiet so no one knows what's really going on in the room, and rather than seeking help.
Yeah. I was that way too for my first couple of years in the classroom. Even though that was an environment I was familiar with, I struggled.
Yeah.
And it never, to be quite honest with you, it never even crossed my mind to go seek a mentor. Like, I had technically a mentor assigned to me, but it was more so in the role of, here's where the copy machine is, and this is what time we're supposed to arrive every day. It wasn't mentorship in the capacity of my growth.
Yeah.
You all right? You good? Okay. Have a good day.
Yep.
Don't forget lunch is at this time. And that was really it. It never even crossed my mind to have that mentality to seek out somebody to help my professional growth. And I just don't think it's a regular part of the narrative. And I'm hoping to definitely change that. We have to, like, with the whole idea of teach, hustle, inspire, each of those words, like, I've chosen them intentionally. And the teach part about it is about how we unlock intellectual treasure, and that's for ourselves and our students. And the hustle is about how we can't stop and won't stop learning, our professional growth. And then the inspire is about spreading love and light. And in order to do that, we have to lean on one another. We
Yeah.
have to make that a regular part of the conversation. And in order to give love and light to our students, we have to give it to ourselves first. Really, really do.
Man, when people are talking about teachers that struggle, and
Mhm.
and they're everywhere, and especially those younger teachers. And you're right, man. I think it's just insane that we call it a teacher mentor. We give them, one of the older teachers, and that's what it is. You're supposed to have lunch with them once a week, and I don't even know. And
Yeah.
and show them how to get your keys, and show them how to log on, and all that stuff, and how to do bus requests. And man, that's the least of their worries. And
Right.
this is the one profession where we have the same exact expectations of a first day teacher as we do as a 30-year veteran. Like they're expected to produce the same results, and they've never done it before. And I don't know of another profession where the typical preparation for a teacher is, I don't know if it could be any better, but it's really poor for lots of teachers when they come in. And they show up, they're completely overwhelmed. I think it's because they know what's at stake. They're dealing with people's lives. They know that subconsciously. So when somebody says, "Hey man, everything okay?" their natural response is, "Yeah, I'm fine." Even though there's nothing fine.
Yeah, definitely. And that model that I was talking about, where that awareness factor, a lot of that really is about peeling back those layers to turn that mirror on yourself so that you can understand emotionally how you are feeling as an educator, what you're giving out as an educator. But really, with that whole self-awareness factor, it's understanding, that I'm not okay. And to be not okay is okay.
Yeah.
Because none of us, I don't care who the person is, how good you were, how much of a rock star you might have been as a student teacher or whatever preparatory, nobody went in there on day one and had all the answers. Even after 10, 15, 20 years, there's still opportunities for growth.
Yeah.
There's still opportunities for growth.
And as soon as you got it figured out, you're about to get that kid, and you realize you ain't got nothing figured out.
That's it.
That's the exciting part about this gig, man. And when you talk about the teach, hustle, inspire, when you hear the language that you use, like that's what we all signed up to do. And what I love about it, I want to stuff some knowledge into that kid's noggin. Of course I do that. But what I really want to do is have an impact on who that kid is becoming each and every day. And that model, that movement that you talk about really serve like those three, the teach, that's like the underpinnings of how to make this thing happen.
Yes. I wholeheartedly believe that. I really, really do. And it really just, I tried to do my best to encapsulate the entire vision. It's difficult. Don't get me wrong. It's an everyday. I don't want to use the word struggle. It's an everyday mission.
Yeah.
That we are on as educators, and I use this as a bat signal, if you will, to remind me of that mission that we are on every single day to touch each and every one of these students' lives. And that we are, whether it is in a good way or in a not so good way, there is an impact that we are having. But I'm trying to do everything that I can to make sure that skews towards the positive.
Yeah, that's the scary part of teaching, man. That impact is going to be monumental. That's no longer a question. The only question is, it's going to be positive or negative.
Yes, that's it. That is really, really it at the end of the day. And so, I try to use the platform that I have to communicate as much as I can to educators. And I try to pour into educators, because what can happen a lot of times is we as professionals, we do this. We're giving. We're constantly giving every single day without really being poured back into. And at the end of the day, you can't give from an empty well. I think that has a lot to do with burnout and people leaving the profession. I think the latest statistics, within the first 3 years, 40 to 50% are leaving, and then another high percentage within the first 5 years. That is ridiculous to me. That's absolutely ridiculous. And think of the children that are being impacted and being left behind
Yeah.
because of problems that can be prevented.
I really believe it's preventable. And if we treated this profession with the value, and like if really sat and thought about, I think most people go, what are we doing, man? We're given like a mentor who shows up once a week, and this is a first-year teacher. But if you look at any other profession that really has an impact, whether maybe it's somebody that's in a psychology field and they're going to be a therapist, there's thousands and thousands of hours of mentorship and guidance, or somebody in a medical field, and thousands of hours of mentorship. And I really hope that there are school leaders out there, because I don't think it's going to happen anyway. I think it has to be a school to school thing, and then people will see the results, and then we'll evolve into a district thing, and then evolve to a state level, and then finally we'll get this national movement where teacher preparation, because everybody knows, hey man, like this whole preparation thing, it really starts when you get a job. That's when you learn how to be a teacher.
It is on the job training, like I've never seen it before. Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
There's a school I haven't done it in a while, but I used to go every semester when the kids were graduating, and they go out and do their student teaching. They come back, and I forget what they refer to it, but it was the big project they have to put together while they're student teaching. These unbelievable monster binders are going to turn in, and they're beautiful because they're, elementary teachers, and, they sparkle. There's pages and pages of work samples and all this stuff. And I'm just thinking, well, that's cute. I mean, it's cute, but I don't know, man. Like, I don't want to. I don't want to hurt their feelings because they put so much work into it. I don't bring it up, but I'm in my mind, I'm thinking, well, that's a super cute binder. I'm not sure how that's going to work out. When you get 48 kids in your class.
Yeah, I like that though, because that speaks to that whole creative side of being an educator. This is one of the professions where, when you have the right foundation, you can unleash your individual creativity like no other place.
Yeah,
you really, really can. And I think that speaks to what you were talking about the show and tell and the relationship building. When you can connect with those students and feed your individual creativity and bring it out of those students, that becomes fun. Yeah. You can make the Pythagorean theorem fun if you add creativity to it. You can make the Revolutionary War fun if you add creativity to it.
Yeah.
It has so much potential, and it doesn't have to be something where you pull up to the parking lot every day and want to curse before you get out the car to get yourself together. You can go in there and be like, I know that this lesson is hitting on all cylinders. I'm ready to have fun today. And that's the type of educator that I grew into once I started to learn that and really foster and feed my own creativity. It got fun. It got really, really fun.
And isn't it crazy how effective you are when it's fun?
Oh man, night and day.
Yeah.
Night and day. Night and day.
I remember like getting to the point where, and looking back, man, now I'm thinking about it. I don't even know, man. I might have to think about this more to make a distinction, but it seems to me like the more fun I was having, the more passionate I was, and the more excited I was, the less any of the teaching strategy, pedagogy mattered, because we're just all in this together, enjoying the moment, and somehow these kids are learning.
And I think what happens with a lot of that is that pedagogy is still there, but it's so well weaved into what you're doing that it's natural. You probably, if it were something physical, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference. It's just so well blended in there.
Yeah. I need to think through that. I think you're right. Rather than whether it's a strategy I want to use to teach, in the past, I'm at the point where this is kind of what we're doing today, until we got to the point where it's passionate and fun, and it became who we are as a family in this room. It's just as part of who we are today.
That's it. And I just really feel like with Teach, Hustle, Inspire in this movement, I try to pour back into educators, because I heard it phrased this way, and it has to do with just our individual selves. No one, how was it said? No one that enjoys life doesn't enjoy work. And what I mean by that is we spend so much time in that classroom. if we don't enjoy what we're doing there, that impacts everything that we're doing outside of the classroom, because now I'm going home, and that time that I'm supposed to value with my family, that time I'm supposed to value to replenish myself, I'm frustrated at home. I'm taking it out on other people who may in turn take it back out on me. And I'm going back into the classroom that next day and repeating that cycle all over again.
Yeah.
When that classroom is a place of enjoyment, when it's a place of creativity, when it's a place of flourish, we're talking about literally 8 hours a day. That's a third of your adult life. And if you're talking about the time that you're sleeping, your waking hours, it's half of your waking hours are spent in that classroom. So it's almost foolish not to put yourself in a position to enjoy what you're doing.
Yeah. Man, can you even imagine another career where it would be more difficult if you didn't like it? Because you can't hide, man. It's not like you got a cubicle. You can just go, just hide in or close the door of an office or something like that. Like if you're miserable in the classroom, I can't even, I see them, there occasionally I'll come across a teacher. I can't, what are you doing? You can replace his income easily in a job where no one talks to you. They're out there, man. I don't know how they do it. Let me ask you this, man. So like this whole idea of, this is where I get confused, is maybe you can provide some guidance for me, is this whole idea of this thought that you cannot give away that which you do not have. I get it. Okay. And I think that was made famous by Leo Buscaglia, maybe in the 70s or something. He wrote a book, and I get it. Like if you can't give away that you don't, you're not full of, and it's a matter of bringing that. But then I think about, well, for me, the way I bring that into my life is to give it away. Like I become all that I give away. Like if I want to bring courage into my life, I have to encourage enough other people, and that somehow makes me courageous. But with teaching, man, like it's like what you said, man, there's this constant outpouring of emotion and thought and creativity, and it's giving and giving and giving. And that's why people, like, you'll see teachers just sitting in their car, and after, like, they forgot to they forgot to start the car to leave. They're just sitting there staring out the windshield, trying to process what happened. Yeah. And for you, man, for those teachers that teach in that way, I mean, how do you see them take care of themselves and recharge and refuel?
It's not happening. Yeah. That's really the simple and direct. It's not happening. And I'm in the process right now of kind of this whole Teach, Hustle, Inspire thing. I'm getting ready. I'm formulating a formal, my next book is going to be about just a whole wellness and educator wellness kind of just transformation, because we talk about self-care. Yeah. It's a buzzword right now, and it has been for a little while, but it's a good buzzword to have. But it's one of those things, I think sometimes, that it's just, well, what is it? How do you do it? How does it help me? And so have been a lot of things that I've just come to understand about taking care of myself. And it has a direct relationship to my growth as an educator, because as I mentioned, I struggled, but I started to understand how important my eating habits were. Yeah. I started to understand how important regular exercise, and I'm not talking about being Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'm not a big buff guy, but I had to understand the importance of some form of regular physical activity. I meditate, and having and practicing mindfulness has been transformational for me. There are certain things that when you put in place, and I actively work regularly to increase my skill set by reading, I listen to podcasts, all of those things contribute to self-care. And when you really put those things into regular practice, now you start to pour back into yourself. So you have more to give. You have like you said, you can't give that which you do not have. Well, now you're having to give. Yeah.
Man, one of the first thoughts I had about this concept was my daughter, who's now a freshman in college, but she's in third grade. Mm-hmm. And she had a teacher, and she was a really young teacher. I don't know if it wasn't her first year, but in her first few years of teaching. And she was a Teach for America kid. And like one of those that are really impressive, like a real teacher that went through the project, not one just wanting to, I don't know, not pay the bill, but like this is a real, and she still is a teacher to this day and has a couple of Montessori schools. But anyway, and she's in her 20s, and I've been teaching a long time. I'm
Mm-hmm.
on the road doing my thing, pretty proud of myself. And I said to her, teacher, I said, hey man, like, what do you think about the school? You loving it here? Yeah, I really do love it. And, how about this principal? Like, 'cause I really like the principal. She works hard. And she goes, yeah, she's a great leader. I do have one issue. And I'm like, oh, well, tell me your issue. And she says, hey, like, what is she going to say? You don't know anything. And she says,
Uh,
I really don't. She goes, I just think, I want to. She said it so well, and I'm not going to say well, but she said, I really think we need to rethink how she's modeling work ethic with how late she stays here, and she's up here by herself working on this campus every Saturday and Sunday. And do we really want that to be the lesson for our kids? That's how you succeed, working 80 hours. And I'm like, man, I never even thought about that because.
right.
Like some people, like the hustle thing, some people misinterpret that and they think it's this no sleep grind zone. And man,
Absolutely not.
that ain't what it's about.
No, no, it is not, because that is detrimental. That serves to me. There is I understand the impetus for it, but it's counterproductive at the end of the day.
Yeah.
It really, really is. And I was the type of person, I left work at work and I was still successful, because regardless of if you're one of those type of people who, let's say the bell rings at 3:05 and you're out in your car at 3:06 and you go home and you've done what you needed to do from those hours from start to finish, then you're fine.
Yeah.
But if you're still one of those people who stays till 7, 8 o'clock at night, I mean, I get it. Don't get me wrong. But at the end of the day, you're taking away time from other things that are important in your life. And moreover, regardless of how much you do after, there's still more to do. It doesn't stop.
Yep.
So where are you going to focus your energy?
Yeah. Man, I think because of social media, like they make it sexy, like the whole Gary V thing, like outworking, that whole deal. And I get it, man. Yeah. That's his niche and that's his market. That's his brand. Like, and so he has to live it. I understand. But at the same time, we forget, man, like the reason they call it, I mean, they call it the grind, and like, you're not the grinder. Life is the grinder. It's going to, at some point, you're going to get ground down. Like you're the one getting grinded. And
100%.
And here's what we forget. Everyone suffers. Like, yeah, you suffer for sure. But like, if you're making a choice as an adult, I guess it's up to you to do whatever you want. I don't care. But what bothers me is now kids are going to suffer because you've accepted the honor and privilege of standing before them every day, and ultimately, that's who suffers.
Yeah, absolutely. It really, really is. I think we've just like it's not really a part of the conversation about seeking out that professional mentor for growth, as it might be in other conversations. It's not a part of the regular conversation of how do we as educators take care of ourselves. And I'm trying to, I have that as a part of my book as one of those elements, that awareness factor that I was telling you about.
Yeah.
But I'm in this next phase, I'm going in depth with it because I've just seen it be successful in helping myself first and other people time after time after time. And I'm doing everything I can to push that. So because at the end of the day, we're all we have. We have to spread this knowledge so that we can take care of ourselves, take care of these students.
Yeah. And dude, I still suck at it, honestly. Like, I completely do. And, my kid, I get a boy and a girl, and the girl's in college. A boy, he's a skateboarder. Like, that's his thing.
Yeah.
And I was taking him to the skate park. We have this amazing downtown skate park in Houston. I'm taking him to. And he's just so passionate. He loves the culture and the community of the fellas over there. Mm-hmm. And he loves how they make fun of each other. Like, they have this, this little boy vibe that they do. And
Sure.
He's excited about it. And he says, man, I love it there. It's like my happy place. And that's cool. And he turns to me, he goes, hey, like, like outside of work and all, that you do, like, being on stage and whatever, like, it goes, where's your happy place?
Wow.
And I'm stumped, man. I'm staring at the red light. I'm staring at the windshield like, bro, I don't know, man.
Yeah.
I really, and like, I have to think, well, I know where it used to be, but I haven't done that in years. I don't think it counts if you haven't done it in 10 years.
That happy place, that's important.
Yeah,
really
where
is
like you
important.
shut it down and go get refueled and your soul.
Sometimes I think we have this subconscious guilt that I'm not supposed to, or it feels selfish
Uh,
to spend time working on me. We're naturally givers as educators, as I mentioned before, and we have to really make sure that we make a conscious effort I call, or I've heard it phrased as putting your star player first.
yeah,
You
you're
really
it.
do.
Yeah.
End of the day.
Hey, when you were in on campus, and what were some of the positions you had in school when you were teaching and leading and all that stuff?
I was a teacher. I taught everything from K-8, and then I was a department chair, and then now I am a college professor. So I teach teachers about classroom management, and then when I consult and work, it's classroom management and culturally responsive teaching, self-care.
Yeah. Man, when we were talking about this the other day with a couple of leaders, people in leadership positions on campuses, and they were talking about the challenge that they had and we were trying to put some language to it. And what I think what they were explaining was, it's the challenge we all have, and that is expecting to see you in the people on your team.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and getting frustrated because they're not you.
That is difficult. It reminds me of sports, and when some of the greatest players that were in the game step into that role as a coach, and they're not successful because their expectation is to see themselves and everybody else. And we as leaders have to understand that we're not supposed to see ourselves and everyone else. We're supposed to bring their best selves out and at the forefront so that they can be their best selves. And it's a huge mentality shift. It really, really is.
You know, and I think that for people that move from the classroom, whether it's to a team lead or department chair or a curriculum role or, you know, principal or anything like that is, from what I hear from the conversations we have, that is one of the biggest shockers of all, that I thought everybody was just like me.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard. It's one of those things where you have to like accept that, and you have to actively remind yourself that I cannot expect to see me and everyone else. It's a constant narrative that you have to push with yourself, but that's good leadership. Leadership is growth, and leadership is getting the best out of other people in the best way that's best for that person.
Yeah. Hey, man, have you seen the same thing I have in that? I really think it's all because of social media. And like, there's way, way more conversations about leadership on campuses and in classrooms. Years ago, I don't remember having this many conversations and people talk about that many books and that many podcasts and resources and YouTube videos. Like, leadership is a huge thing right now, when in the past, I don't know if that was true.
Yeah, it's a really big part of the conversation. And I don't know if it's a part of the conversation to help people lead in the traditional sense, or if it's to help people get out of the classroom.
Yeah.
That is one question that I have about that sometimes. If it's for the genuine purpose of guiding others to be better educators, because that's really what it's all about, in my humble opinion, fantastic. If it's just a path for you to get out of the classroom as quickly as possible, then there's some rethinking that needs to come along with that.
For sure. Yeah, I've always, those principles, and I think we all, as an educator, when you've got a kid standing in front of you talking about your observation, and I can look at him, and I know this dude did his 3 years in the classroom. He got his master's while he was doing that, and now he got an AP job, and now he's going to talk to me about what's happening in my classroom. Are you crazy? You know, but I just, smile and like, oh, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And, but there's something about this education thing. It's like people in our minds. And here's the crazy part. This kid might have had some real value to share, but I don't know, because I'm so closed off, But as educators, oftentimes, man, we're just so closed because we think he hasn't been there. He doesn't know. You man, that's also the same thing with going to schools. Like, that's why I think for you, I can tell just talking to you, but for me, like my opening part of my day with teachers, if I'm spending a full day my opener is close to 45 minutes because I need them to know I've been there, man. I've had your kids. You know, and I need to demonstrate that with the language I use and just in how I gesture and the stories I tell to know, hey man, I know that girl that sits in your front row and you're thinking right now, she would shank you if you were in my class. I taught that girl. I taught her and her sister.
Yep.
Yeah.
Especially in that situation where you have, the whole family that comes over the period of years. Oh yeah.
I got them all. And sometimes they're 3 years apart in the same freshman class. I've had those kids, man.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's hilarious.
Man, last thing is,
sure.
Tell me about this MC thing, man. Like, was it when you were teaching, was that part of the program in the classroom?
So here's the thing, what happened with that. I mentioned before that when I was teaching, I had a bit of a side hustle. And I was a DJ.
Yeah.
And so literally what would happen is on the weekends, I would leave my classroom and grab some dinner, grab something to eat, and go straight to the club. And so I DJ'd with 2 turntables. I had my microphone. And so I was the DJ and I was the MC. And what I began to notice is, just as I grew as a DJ and as I grew as an educator, there was a correlation between my objective in each of those circumstances. I was in a one-to-many environment in both roles. And my objective in each was to get these people to move. I needed you to dance. I needed you to learn. But I was that source of motivation, and the records that I chose or the lessons that I chose and how I presented them, I get to exercise my creativity and curate that content. And I was making decisions in real time in both of those, because depending on how the crowd reacted, depending on which direction I went as far as a DJ, and depending on how the students reacted, depending on which direction that I went in that lesson. And so what I did was I kind of created this model that encapsulated my experience in both of those roles, growing as a DJ, but more so as an educator, obviously, to create that role, because I was the MC, and it's based off of the lyrics of Eric B. and Rakim's song in, I want to say 1987, Eric B. is President. And so in the second verse, the lyric goes something along the lines of Eric B. on the cut. They were a DJ MC duo. And it said, no mistakes allowed, because to me, MC means move the crowd.
Yeah.
And I grew up on Long Island, where those two guys are from. So it was just a part of me, and my dad listened to that. And so I took that concept and kind of just applied it here. But MC means move the class to me, and how I was able to just transform using what I call the elements of urban education, that achievement, that alliance and relationship building, that awareness of self, and that artistry, that creativity factor, to blend those and get those results in the classroom.
Yeah, man. Just listening to you talk about it and the passion that you have about it is, it's inspiring. And also it really makes me think that, as educators, although it might not be that graphic, like there's stuff in your life, man, that you can bring into the classroom. And maybe it's not that, this a flamboyant, MC or DJ thing, but there's something that, and it all goes back to, that you can do with your kids so they know you on a deeper level. Because this is a generation, it's almost as if we have to, it sounds crazy to say, but we have to earn the right to teach. And the way we earn the right to teach those kids is let them to see us in the deepest, most authentic way as who we are is possible.
And that was the root of my struggle at the beginning, because I was trying to be somebody else.
Yeah, the facade.
I came into that classroom every single day trying to be what I thought, quote unquote, those kids needed.
Yeah.
And it was not fun for me. I created an environment that was cold, that did not get results. And when I started to just kind of bring Shaun into the classroom and started to change that around and have more fun, and as I continued to grow as an educator and in my practice, and then simultaneously as a DJ, I began to really, really enjoy it more, get better results, build better relationships, and inevitably feel better about what I was doing during and after work.
Yeah. We all start out like that. Like we think we're going to step into this role of a teacher, and we're going to put on the costume that supports that role, and then we're going to behave in such a way that we think we need to behave in that role. And man, just this year, I was teasing a teacher, and she was struggling, and we're having a fun conversation about it. And I said, "Hey, man, the reason," because I was watching her teach, I said, "I think that the reason the struggle that you're having all comes down to your tattoo." And she goes, "What?" I said, "It's your tattoo." She goes, "What? What do you mean? What makes you think I have a tattoo?" I said, I saw it. I saw it creeping out of your collar." And she goes, "Well, the kids don't have a problem with tattoos." I said, "No, they love it. But here's the thing. Like, you're wearing the costume, you're playing a role, and you're acting like someone they can tell that's not you. And then the evidence is this tattoo. They want to know about that tattoo, man. They want to know who you really are. And
who you really are.
Yeah.
Yes.
I said, man, just be that. Like, be who you are. Like, you know, you're a great person. Go do that for those kids so they can learn.
Be your true, authentic self. It's a lot easier said than done, to be honest with you. But when you are aware that that's okay, that's where it starts. Yeah. Be you, and work to grow as an educator, and the results will follow.
Love it, man. Hey, man, I'm fired up, man. You got me inspired. And, man, I can't thank you enough for taking time early in the morning and just giving to the teachers. And, man, I know they're going to love it. And I really appreciate you and all that you're doing. And for those that, about the book, man, because there's schools everywhere that are going through that transition. I went through, and there's teachers are struggling. And for those that want to find out more, tell them how to get the book.
Sure. The book MC means Move the Class, How to Spark Engagement and Motivation in Urban and Culturally Diverse Schools. It is available on Amazon. It is also available on my website, teachhustleinspire.com. And I have books available. I have also sweatshirts like this and T-shirts and things like that are pretty popular that a lot of teachers like to wear. So you can get those, or feel free to reach out directly to me if you have any questions about anything. I can be reached at Shaun at ShaunWoodly.com, or you can just go to, again, teachhustleinspire.com, and my contact information is right there.
And then we'll put all the contact information, the website info, and all the social media handles. I forgot. I can't keep up, man. We'll put all that stuff in the show notes, and then people can find you there. All right, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I greatly appreciate it. I do not take it lightly that you're, just having me on your show and welcoming me into your space. Humble thanks.
Absolutely, brother. Appreciate you.
Have a great one.
Take care, man.
This has been the Teach Like a Rockstar podcast with Hal Bowman. Subscribe, rate, and share from halbowman.com/podcast.